As a young black man, I have an obligation to my race of people, not to no other race or no other nationality, just to black people.
And you have always hated us. We have loved you consistently for 400 years. We prayed to that white Jesus, and we saluted your flag, and we died in your militaries, and you beat us like dogs.
Thomas Wiggins, also known as Blind Tom, was born in Columbus, Georgia in 1849 on a slave plantation owned by Wiley Jones. Believing his blindness would be of no profit to the plantation, his master had planned to sell him off, but Tom's mother Charity fought to keep him with the rest of his family. She arranged for herself, her husband Domingo, Tom, and her other children to be sold as a group to a different master, General James Bethune. Though the diagnosis did not exist in the 19th century, current historians believe Wiggins was an autistic savant. An autistic savant is a person affected with autism who exhibits exceptional skill, brilliance, or amazing talent in certain fields. The skills at which savants excel are generally related to memory. This may include rapid calculation, artistic ability, map making, or musical ability. As a young child, Tom was fascinated with sound. He would mimic bird calls in trains. Tom also would rock back and forth constantly. His master looked at him as subhuman and said to his mother, educating him would be like educating a dog. Bethune and his family would teach Tom one-worded commands. When the Bethune girls would have piano lessons, Tom would listen in from outside the room. To the family's astonishment, Tom would play back what he had heard. By age 6, Tom was able to compose his own music by mimicking sounds he heard every day. Seeing Tom as an investment, Bethune provided musical lessons for him. An instructor told him that Tom could learn skills in a few hours that require others years to perfect. When Tom was 8, he was hired out to a Savannah tobacco planter and concert promoter, Perry Oliver. Tom had his first concert in 1857. He was promoted as something of a circus freak, an otherworldly combination of heaven-sent talent and terrifying disability. At this age, he could learn others' compositions with astonishing ease. They traveled from town to town and state to state, netting Bethune and Oliver large sums of money. Tom's concerts consisted of 4 shows a day, which was very grueling. He was one of the highest paid pianists of his time, earning Bethune and Oliver the modern equivalent of over $1 million a year. Wiggins is believed to be the first African-American artist to perform at the White House when he played for President James Buchanan in 1860. By that time, Blind Tom had toured the United States and was a national musical sensation. Those at the White House command performance in the Executive Mansion were amazed that such moving and masterful music flowed from someone who suffered apparent mental deficiencies, as well as blindness, and also was a Negro, in an era when even many abolitionist whites presumed all blacks to be an inherently inferior race. One newspaper critic in attendance reported that Blind Tom's musical skills surpassed Mozart's. Tom played original compositions drawn from his detailed observations of nature and pieces by other composers. Though he appeared happy while being absorbed in his piano playing, Wiggins' apparent joy hid the misery he experienced off the stage. He was isolated from other people when he wasn't performing in front of an audience. This mistreatment caused him to develop anxiety and depression. In concerts, audience members would call out the names of any musical piece and Tom would play it perfectly on the spot. Theater patrons would even approach the stage for a duel. They would play a composition on Tom's piano that they created, and Tom would play it back perfectly. One evening, an audience member sat at Tom's piano on stage and began to play. His chosen composition was intricate and involved him moving his hand apart down the length of the piano. When he reached the end, the player threw his head down and struck a key with his nose. As Tom resumed his position to play back what he had heard, the audience members sat in suspense. Tom played up to the note that was struck 2 or 3 times, obviously confused. But in the final play, with Tom's hand stretched to the ends of the piano, Tom dropped his head and hit the correct key with his nose. A witness reported that he thought that the roof of the building would collapse due to the roar of the audience's response to Tom having called the trick. In another performance, Tom played one song with his left hand and another with his right hand and sang a song at the same time, all in different pitches. He was known to jump up from his bench after his performances and lead the audience in their applause, applauding himself. At the height of Tom's career, his repertoire of performance music was said to consist of 7,000 compositions, including many of his own. Even during the Civil War, Wiggins continued to perform. During this period, the 14-year-old Wiggins composed the Battle of Manassas, his best-known piece. Tom had heard first-hand accounts from Confederate soldiers and Bethune's sons about the war, which inspired him to create the composition. They took Tom to Savannah, Georgia to perform, raising $5,000 in donations for the Confederate cause. General Bethune convinced Tom's parents to sign a 5-year agreement giving him legal guardianship of Tom in case of a Confederate defeat. In 1870, the guardianship contract ended, and Tom was 21 years old. However, General Bethune then requested that the courts declare Tom legally insane to continue the guardianship, and the courts complied. Tom's fame grew immensely as he played sonatas by Beethoven, works by Liszt, and his original compositions in standing room-only theaters and concert halls. Time between tours was spent at Bethune's new home in Warrenton, Virginia, or apartments in New York City, where Tom took lessons. Mark Twain became so fascinated with Blind Tom's story that he once attended concerts 3 nights in a row, later writing a vivid account. By 1879, Tom's concerts and sales of his sheet music were making a fortune annually, but Tom and his family received no compensation. The Bethunes received 90% of his earnings. After the Civil War, Bethune's son, John, took over the management of Tom, and he used Wiggins' considerable income to support his extravagant lifestyle. John Bethune and Tom continued to tour, crisscrossing the United States and Europe. In 1882, John married his landlady, Eliza Stutbach. Shortly after their marriage, John left with Tom on an extended tour of the United States, leaving Eliza behind. When Bethune returned home 8 months later, his wife filed for divorce. The couple split up, but a bitter legal squabble ensued, with Eliza hounding John for financial support. The courts ruled in John's favor. John Bethune would later die in a railway accident in 1884, and Tom was returned to General Bethune, who at the time was living in Virginia. Eliza sued General Bethune for custody, with Tom's mother Charity, who was convinced to join the suit, believing she would live with her son. After a long custody battle in several courts, in August 1887, Tom was awarded to Eliza, along with monetary rewards for Tom's creative talents. Eliza married her lawyer in the suit, Abrick Lurch, and Wiggins' earnings were used to purchase a country home in New Jersey's Navesink Highlands and Monmouth County, where Tom would live part-time, and the rest spent in a tenement building in New York City's Greenwich Village. Eliza and her new husband added more dates to Tom's busy schedule for a life of constant travel and performances. After her divorce from Lurch, Eliza moved to a house in Hoboken, New Jersey in 1903, which she had purchased with Wiggins' earnings. Tom's final years were spent in his room at this New Jersey home. Charity Wiggins resented that she could not be near her son because he had been taken away from her due to these legal battles. She is quoted in an article having said, "They won't let Thomas come see me, and I am not allowed to see him." She always referred to him as Thomas. Charity died in 1905 at the age of 108 in Birmingham, Alabama. Tom continued playing for hours at a time until stopping abruptly weeks before his death, suffering from a stroke that partially paralyzed his hands. On the night that he died, Eliza could hear Tom trying to play the piano, but becoming frustrated by his paralysis. Through his sobs, Eliza heard him say, "I'm done. I'm all gone, missus," followed by a thunderous thud of his body collapsing on the floor. Tom died from a stroke at the age of 59 on June 13, 1908. There is considerable debate, however, about his burial site. Initially, he was interred in the Evergreen Cemetery in Brooklyn, New York, though some argue at the time that the body buried there was not Blind Tom's. Others believe that Wiggins was initially buried there, but was later exhumed and reinterred near his birthplace in Columbus. Today, 2 plaques, one in Brooklyn and another in Columbus, mark the resting place of Blind Tom. This is the story of a musical prodigy, a genius, Thomas Wiggins, also known to the world as Blind Tom.